Hello everyone, good evening. Today is 23rd of December and welcome to Idea, that is in-depth editorial analysis discussion. So guys, in this session, we pick the best of the editorials from the different newspapers and we cover these editorials with respect to the UPSC examination. Now, in these editorial discussions, we are going to focus number one on content enrichment, because many number of times aspirants don't have much content as how to write the best answers. So content enrichment. Moreover, the contemporary affairs will be linked with the GS paper number 1, 2, 3, and if there are some good case studies for ethics GS4, that will also be taken up. Then all these editorials will be complemented with detailed background information so that you can know that why these articles have been important or what is the relevant background information one should know. Then structured explanations will also be taken up and art of exam presentation will be taken up. Then not only that particular article will be discussed, but the different dimensions that can be associated with that, it also be taken up. Now, before starting up, I would like to tell you that if you are watching it for the first time or if you are new here, the PDF of this particular session can be downloaded from the Telegram channel Unacademy Sahil Saini. Now that channel's link has been given in description box in YouTube. So in description box, you can visit the Telegram channel and can download the PDF. Now in the today's newspaper, in the today's session, we are going to cover the three important newspaper sources. The first is Business Line, and then the Hindustan Times, and there are the Indian Express articles that we are going to discuss. So the first article is Produce Coal and Not the Coal Stations. This particular article will be important for GS paper number 3, Planning and Mobilization of Resources. Then India 27 Goals that will guide G20 presidency. This particular article will also be important for GS paper number 2, International Relation Global Groupings. Then why liquor ban is good and why liquor ban is bad. Now this particular article will be important for GS paper number 2, Government Policies, the critical evaluation of the government policies. Moreover, one ethical dimension also we are going to take in this article. Then the fourth article is Regulation of Digital Assets. Regulation of digital assets. So recently we have seen this thing that in the terrorists, they are using the digital assets for their nefarious objectives. So this thing will be seen with respect to the GS paper number 3, Science and Technology. Fine. And this article is also taken from the Indian Express newspaper. Now let's start with the session, and meanwhile a very good evening to all the learners. A very good evening to Priyanka, Pratiksha, Madhusmita, Pallavi, Pooja, Sandeep, Shubdeep. A very good evening to all of you. Now let's start with the first article first. Okay, so basically guys, as we see the coal production in India, first of all, some of the background information we are going to see that first of all, as of today, approximately 51% of India's electricity is coming from the coal-fired power stations. India had India had adopted that by 2070 we will become carbon neutral, and for the first time carbon neutrality was adopted in 2026 as the part of Panch Amrit goals that we have taken at COP in 2021 at COP 26. At COP 26 we have taken this particular target. Now understand this particular thing that guys, though the coal is to be discarded, though we need to reduce the reliance, but still 51% of electricity is coming from the coal. Guys, there are certain structural bottlenecks in the electricity generation in India. We see every year that around the month of July, August, there is a rampant coal shortage that happens. Why? Because the coal mines that are there, they are filled with the water because of the monsoons. And as the mining becomes difficult, coal production goes down, and that particular thing impacts the electricity production in India. So basically, what we need to do in order to enhance the coal reserves in India, all these things have been discussed in this particular article. Now, first of all, when we talk about the coal reserves in India, geographically India is blessed in terms of the coal reserves, and we have fifth largest reserves all of the coal in world. Now understand, as we talk about the coal, India's coal is not of very much superior quality. It is because of the high impurities and ash content that is there in the coal. However, due to that particular thing, okay, bhel, which is a PSU in 1980s, actually was able to identify the efficient and reliable power generating equipment which can use the Indian coal with the high ash content and can produce electricity very efficiently with that. Now NTPC, that is the National Thermal Power Corporation, was able to utilize the technologies provided by the BHEL and was able to generate the electricity from Indian coal and was able to provide cheap electricity to a large number of people. You guys understand this particular thing, that whenever we talk about the nation, any nation's progress, that nation's progress and the living standard can be seen on the basis of two factors. Number one, electricity consumption and the consumption of iron and steel in this particular nation. So basically, because the cheap electricity was provided, impetus to industrialization came, life standard of the people got improved, and that was very good. Over the years, the coal production in India has increased. We have given the grants for many of the new coal fields. Coal production has increased, but at the same time, thermal power demand and thermal power generation has increased with even more speeds. Actually, there are two types of infrastructures. Guys, understand that on one hand, there is the coal mine. On one hand, there is coal mine, and on other hand, there is the coal thermal power plant. Okay, so mine will supply the coal to the power plant. Now what has happened, these power plants have increased, or their numbers have increased with much more speed, but the mines, their capacity to extract coal has not increased. Because of that particular thing, there came a mismatch between the extraction capacity and the coal that was needed. Fine. So therefore what happened, we started to import coal from the other countries. So the demand for electricity became fast, power shortages became chronic, and we started to import the coal. Now in this particular direction, guys, what had happened, the domestic coal production, though we have fifth largest reserves, but it has not been able to keep pace with the development, and importing coal became such a big problem that we are importing around 196 million tons of the coal in 2019 and 20, which is very high. Now this particular thing leads to multiple problems. Number one, it leads to India's dependency on the other countries in terms of coal, and therefore energy security of India. Therefore, the energy security of India is always in a vulnerable situation. Secondly, when we are importing the coal from other countries, we need to pay the foreign exchange for such imported coal, and already India's foreign exchange is going down. Why? Because of the rising import bills that have been there. Now guys, when we talk about the coal, fine, international coal prices have long been stable and low for a large period of time. This was good, but what has happened now, in line with the other commodity prices, in line with the prices of the oil and gas, coal prices have also started to increase. Now if we see the oil price over the past few years, we have seen that since 2011 and 12, 2021 2022, sorry, the oil prices have increased significantly, and this particular proportion, coal prices have also increased. Now understand this particular thing, when we talk about the oil requirements of India, around 82% of India's oil, requirement is met via imports. Okay, so imports are very high for the oil, and for the oil we are paying the foreign exchange, crucial foreign exchange of India. At the same time, when we talk about the exports of India are low. Why exports of India are low? Because number one, there is global inflation that is going on. Secondly, there is the global slowdown that is going on. So because of the high inflation and slowdown, the demand in overseas market is not high. So therefore exports are low, imports are high. So therefore India is facing high current account deficit. So current account deficit is when your imports are more and your exports are less. So India is facing current account deficit. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that the coal demand is rising. Moreover, it has been said that as we can see the growth trajectory, electricity and the resultant thermal coal demand is further going to increase. Fine. Though domestic coal has increased, though domestic coal production has also been increasing, and we are trying to make up with that particular thing. But guys, still we need more than 100 million ton of coal, and this was needed even in this particular year that has been seen. So therefore there is an urgent need that we need to give the boost to the domestic coal extraction facilities. In this particular direction, basically it has been in this particular direction, guys. We can see this particular thing, that now what has happened, uh, basically we need to fast forward the production from mines under development, and we need to develop new mines. Okay, so we need to first of all ramp up the existing mines. Okay, so whatever the existing mines are there, we need to extract the coal from them. We need to give approval for the new mines. Okay, this should be the number one priority. For this particular thing, what we need to focus upon, we need to focus upon giving the speedier environmental clearances, forest clearances. Many number of times, because of the clearances are not coming, these mines don't get approval. So this is something that is to be done at the same time. Now understand, as we are giving this particular suggestion, it will become a controversial thing when the wildlife and the tribal welfare will be concerned, because whenever the coal fields are being given approval, they most of the times are into the dense forest, and in these forests either the tribal people are residing or it will impact the environment. Fine. So however, we need to balance such kind of a thing. Now the another proposal that comes is that should we allow the building of the new coal power plants? Should we allow that particular thing? Now in this particular direction, guys, it has been provided that we should not allow the building of the new coal power plants till the supply of domestic coal is assured. Okay, and for that particular thing, what we need to do, we need to procure a kind of a coal linkage, coal assurance by the Coal India. Is it clear or not? Only when the Coal India gives an assurance that a supply of coal will be given, then only the new plant is to be started. Otherwise, new power generation plant will be a very bad business idea or a commercial venture, because in past it has been seen that the banks have given loans to the power plants, but these power plants were not able to become operational. Why? Because they did not had raw material, that is coal. So first of all, develop the mines, enhance the capacity of the mines, and then give approval to the new power plant, new coal, new power plants. Now understand this particular thing. As we talk about the electricity is in the shortage, and till the time we are not able to enhance the capacity of coal, we need to look forward for the renewable energy. And in the renewable energy, solar energy becomes a very important and promising option. But with the solar energy, there is always a problem that how to store solar energy, particularly how to store that solar energy. And understand, as the sun is not there in the night, how to get electricity at the night, this is a very big problem. So therefore it has been provided that we also need to invest in the storage facilities when electricity is being procured from the renewables. And in this particular capacity, the electricity from renewables can be stored in hydro pump storage plants. There can be the hydro pump storage plants, as well as the batteries, particularly the lithium ion batteries, their help can be taken. So therefore we also need to invest on the capabilities of hydro pump storage plant and in the lithium ion batteries. Now it has also been provided that the solar power can also be stored into concentrated solar thermal plants. Now what are the concentrated solar thermal plants? So basically the mirrors can be used. Okay, so what can be done? The mirrors can be used, and by the mirrors, concentrated solar rays can be directed in a container which contains the molten salt. And by this particular molten salt, now this molten salt has a capacity to retain heat, and as it can retain the heat, this particular heat can be used at the time of night to generate electricity through the normal steam turbine. So this is a very crucial kind of and a very technical kind of a suggestion that can be given in this particular direction. Okay, so again I am explaining this particular thing, that we can use mirrors to direct the concentrated solar rays on molten salt, which can conserve the heat, and that heat can be used at night to generate electricity. Now when we talk about the way ahead for India, though we have suggested this particular thing, that number one, we need to enhance the coal production in India, and only after the coal production, power plants are needed to be given approval. But at the same time, even if we are able to bring more and more coal, we need to understand that the electricity that is being generated by the coal is becoming expensive, and it's being provided that the when we talk about the domestic coal, the electricity that we are getting it priced around 4.5 to 6 rupees per unit, and it is very expensive, and imported coal, using it is out of question. So therefore, we need to look on the renewable sources of energy, and renewable energy electricity unit had come seriously down. So basically from the renewables, we are able to procure electricity at the rate of 2.88 per unit. Okay, this is something that has been there, and this much price for the stored electricity, because for storing you need to have you need to have batteries, you need to have other infrastructure. So obviously that particular price will also be added into the electricity. So for the stored, it will go into the range of 6.12 to 6.88, but it can be reduced significantly if we work it on the big scales. And as the developments are happening in lithium ion batteries day by day, as they are becoming more as they are becoming more efficient, so this cost will be brought down. So therefore it has been provided that as we talk about the future, it will always be cheaper uh, to invest in renewable energies. It will be cheaper than new thermal power plant as well as the domestic coal. So therefore the solution is to have more renewable energy, and we need to invest into the multiple storage plants to get electricity in the night time. In this particular capacity, guys, it has also been provided that we need to find that how we can create the large grid storage capabilities, how we can deploy the large grid storage capabilities. This is something that we can focus upon. Now the storage capability, it is very important. Why? Because if you remember, in COP26 last year, India has taken the target that we are going to achieve 500 gigawatt of electricity through the non-fossil fuels, and this is something that we are going to achieve by 2030. So when we will procure so much of electricity by the non-fossil fuels, renewable energies, a large chunk is also going to be from the solar. Okay, and for the solar, we have already took the target that 175 gigawatt of electricity is to be developed from renewable, and out of 175, 100 gigawatt was to be deployed by the solar power plants. Now storage of energy is very much important. So this, for this particular target also, the storage has to be invested upon. Moreover, understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the coal plants, they also need a lot of capital investment. They need a lot of capital investment, and they have a lifespan of 40-50 years. So upfront capital is needed, then regular supply of coal is needed. So therefore the coal power plant, it becomes a very difficult and a risky infrastructure acquisition. So therefore investing in renewables is very effective. Now we need to focus on, also guys, understand this particular thing, decarbonizing electricity has been taken as a national goal, because we intend to become net zero by 2070, and this goal has been declared by Prime Minister. So the decarbonization of electricity is already a goal. So therefore we need to reduce the reliance on the coal. So this is something that we need to focus in the present times. Is it clear or not? So guys, that is all about it. And here very logically, the writer had first of all provided that we do need coal. We need to invest in enhancing the coal extraction facilities, but at the same time doing that might not be very much wise, because right now that basically pricing of the electricity that is being procured from the coal is increasing. Fine. So a very logical culmination has been given. So that is all guys about this particular article. I hope that you have understood it. In meanwhile, if you have any doubt with respect to this particular article, you may ask. Okay, any doubt, students? Fine. Now moving to next article. So this article we have taken from the Hindustan Times, and this article talks about that what India's 2047 goals will guide the G20 presidency. Now when we talk about the 2047 goals, understand this particular thing. In 2047, India will be India will mark the 100-year anniversary of independence. Okay, and by 2047, now the next 25 years have been defined as Amrit Kal. And this Amrit Kal is very crucial, because in these 25 years, this Amrit Kal, India wants to become a developed nation. India wants to become a developed nation. India wants to go in the group of high income countries, high income group countries we want to go. Moreover, strategically also we need to enhance the strategic power of India. Okay, we aim to become the superpower in this particular direction. Okay, then moving on in this particular direction. So basically, particularly the December 1, 2022, has been very important for India because India assumed the G20 presidency on the 1st of December. And in this G20 presidency, India has the target of achieving 4 Ds. Now, what are these 4 Ds? Let's understand them one by one. Number one, D is de-escalating the conflicts. Right now, we see this particular thing that conflicts are going at multiple levels. The biggest conflict that's going on is Russia-Ukraine war. After that, there are the regional conflicts that are going on. Particularly, we see the regional conflicts going on in Middle East, regional conflicts in Africa. Many terrorist groups are going on. Okay. Then the next is more digitalization. Now understand this particular thing. Digital solutions can be something by which good governance, decentralization, and effective service delivery can be achieved. So more digitalization we want to bring, and India can also be it can also be an important leader in this particular direction. The next is equitable and inclusive development. Now, up till now, the development that has come, it has benefited only few people. Because of that particular thing, inequalities in the world has been increased. Particularly when we talk about SARS-CoV-2 virus, it has been called as inequality virus by the Oxfam report. Oxfam report. Moreover, COVID-19 virus has also been called as the billionaire variant virus. Why? Because people working in the pharmaceutical sector, people working into the tech sector has got lot many opportunities and they became rich. Inequalities got increased. Fine. Then the fourth D is striving on equitable framework for decarbonization to fight the climate crisis. So decarbonization to fight the climate crisis. So these are the 4 Ds that India is going to focus upon. Now moving on, let's take one by one. So first is de-escalation. So de-escalation means that how India can act as a third pole. How India can act as a third pole by which the de-escalation can be brought. Now, right now, India is focusing on the multi-alignment strategy, as well as India is also focusing on promotion of rule-based multilateralism. Now, understand this particular thing. Basically, guys, India was driven by the NAM, non-alignment movement during the Cold War. And when the non-alignment movement was taken up, India provided that we will not join any one camp, neither will join the USA's camp, nor will join the USSR camp, because that will lead to the polarization of world. And by that particular polarization, there will be the problems that are going to come. Okay, so this was the NAM, where we did not took any one side. We did not took any one side. Today, India is following strategic autonomy. Okay, just a minute. Now, what is happening today? India is following the strategic autonomy. Strategic autonomy. And in the direction of strategic autonomy, what India is focusing upon? India is focusing upon that we need to have multiple alignments. We'll not have one friend or one enemy. We'll choose the countries on the basis of our national interest. So in the strategic autonomy and multi-alignment, again, we are not picking the side with any one country. So this is something, as we are negotiating, we are cooperating with all the countries, we can be meaningful interlocutors, we could be meaningful negotiators, because we don't have any one biasness. Fine, we don't have any one preference, and by this particular thing, de-escalation can be brought. Moreover, India always talks about the promotion of rule-based multilateralism. Rule-based multilateralism. Okay, so multilateralism is an order where different countries are coming together for a common purpose. Now, it needs to be based on certain rules. Okay, so this has been the essence of India's foreign policy and economic policy, and because of that particular thing, all the countries appreciate for India, and therefore India can help in de-escalation. Secondly, India is playing a very important and constructive role in many of organizations, for example, SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, BRICS, okay, that is the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. Fine, India is playing a very important role. Now understand this particular thing, that India is negotiating with almost all the countries under different programs. For example, when we talk about the SCO and BRICS, under SCO and BRICS, China and Russia's representation is there. And when we talk about the quadrilateral security dialogue, here USA is there. Right now, who are at confrontation? On one hand, we have USA, on another hand, we have China and Russia. Now India is negotiating with both, cooperating with both under SCO and BRICS, Russia and China, and under Quad, USA. So because of this particular multiple alignments, what we can do, we can bring all the parties together because we have the talking terms with all of them. Moreover, India at the same time is also raising the voice of the developing nations. Okay, India is also raising the voice of the island nations, and all their interest India is also putting forward. For example, island nations concerns are with respect to the climate change and the rising sea level. So that particular concern is being put forward. Then the developing countries concerns are being put forward. For example, when we talk about the COP, when we talk about COP, that is Conference of Parties. Under the COP, fine, India is putting forward the developing countries' concerns. In WTO, when the subsidies issue is being discussed, there also India is putting forward the developing countries' concerns. Under the United Nations also, India is putting forward that particular concern. Now, basically, as India is becoming the president and the G20, India can act as a bridge between the large and powerful nations where it belongs, okay, and it can also basically it can also leverage the support from the small nations as well. Now the second is development and digitalization. Now as we talk about the development and digitalization, understand this particular thing. By digital tools, by digital innovations that India had brought, large number of fruits of development India has achieved in the last 6 to 7 years. Now we want to give you certain data. For example, 2005 to 2021 has been very important because India pulled out 415 million people from multi-dimensional poverty. Is it clear? What do we mean by multi-dimensional poverty? Multi-dimensional poverty, fine, is an indicator by which the people's poverty will not just be seen on the parameter of income. Parameter of income is one. Apart from that, there can be other parameters. For example, whether the housing is there or not. If the housing is there, what type of housing is there? Whether there is a pakka house, whether there is a kacha house. Third parameter could be there, whether a household is having the accessibility of proper sanitation, what quality of standard they are having. So on multiple factors, the poverty is seen and we get the multidimensional poverty. So multidimensionally poor people who were poor on multiple factors, they have been pulled back, and 415 million people have been pulled from multidimensional poverty. After that particular thing, we have also seen this particular thing. In the last 8 years, there is acceleration in poverty alleviation, poverty reduction that has also happened. Now, the social security nets of India, social security coverage of India has played a very important role. For example, in 2014, India, we started with the Jan Dhan Yojana. We started with Jan Dhan Yojana. And as a part of the Jan Dhan Yojana, what had happened, India has embarked and on opening the no frill accounts. 500 million bank accounts have been opened, particularly for the poor, underprivileged people. And out of these 500 million accounts, 260 million accounts have been opened for women. Now, by these particular accounts, they are directly receiving the subsidies in their bank accounts. And as they are receiving subsidies directly into their bank accounts, there is proper targeting that is happening. Earlier, the ghost beneficiaries, unintended beneficiaries used to divert that particular money, and earlier a lot of corruption was there. Now, when we talk about, guys, the corruption in India, understand this particular thing. According to one of a speech that was given by the former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi in 1985 in Odisha, he said this thing, that 15 paisa out of 1 rupee, 15 paisa out of 1 rupee actually reaches to the intended beneficiary. So basically 85 paisa or 85% of the money, roughly around 85% of the money, it was being diverted for corruption and all such kind of things. Now as direct benefit transfer got started, directly the money is reaching to the bank accounts. So such problem has been solved. The next issue that comes in this particular direction is this, guys, that actually we also came out with other systems. For example, Aadhaar, UPI. Now when we talk about Aadhaar, Aadhaar has given common identity to the people, and because of the Aadhaar identification, beneficiary identification has happened more effective. With the UPI, okay, the welfare schemes are being better targeted at individual level, money is being transferred in a seamless manner. So this is something that has happened. Now after this, guys, understand this particular thing, that the scenario is changing. Now if we take certain numbers, understand, in 2020 The world was in the middle of the pandemic, but India was able to secure livelihood of the poorest people. India was able to transfer the subsidies, cash transfers, even when the pandemic was going on. So basically, as the part of Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, government started many subsidies. For example, Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana was started, and under this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, 5 kg additional food grains were provided to the 80 crore people. 80 crore people. Now this is something that happened, and at the same time there was also additional 500 rupees subsidy that was transferred to the vulnerable people, and that thing became possible only by the digital identification of the people. Moreover, at the same time, basically during the COVID-19, the vaccine platform Covin also helped India to scale the vaccination, and it helped India to track the people, their vaccination status when we were providing multiple vaccines. Okay, all these particular things made possible 2 billion doses, okay, got was given to the people by the COVID. So it is also an example of India's digitalization. Now, in this particular action, guys, both the developed and developing countries can learn from these India systems and can implement such kind of a thing in their own countries. Now, further, as we talk about the decarbonization, on decarbonization front also, India has done some really good work. First of all, India has taken some very ambitious targets towards the decarbonization. For example, in 2015, what happened? In COP21 that was held in Paris, India committed that 40% of India's energy will come from the non-fossil fuel sources by 2030. Okay, now this particular target has already been achieved in November 2021, and exactly today, as of 2022, around 41% of India's electricity is coming from renewables. And as we have achieved this particular target before time, it was to be achieved by 2030, but we achieved in 2021. So India has a target, and now we have provided that 50% of India's electricity will be coming from the renewable energy sources. Then the next thing that comes here in this particular direction is that India is also crucial in promoting the multilateral initiatives, for example, International Solar Alliance. Now, in the International Solar Alliance, countries between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, which sees the abundance of sunshine for at least 200 days, all have come together, and they are going to collaborate for solar development. Moreover, guys, India has also started one solar, one world, one grid initiative. What is one solar, one world, one grid? The idea is that the sun never sets. In some or the other countries, sun will always be there up. So we need to build a global grid. In this electricity grid, all the countries will be connected. Suppose the sun is right now not there in the India, but let's say that the sun is there in Middle East, in some Gulf country. So there the electricity will be generated, and that electricity will be transferred to another countries. And when let's say the sun will be up in other country, then the electricity will be transferred to the former country. So we need to build one grid where all the countries will transfer the electricity. Fine, this is the idea that India has taken. Moreover, India has also talked about tackling the climate justice through tackling the climate crisis through the climate justice, and for that particular thing we are focusing on building an equitable program which recognizes that historic polluters of the developed country and developing country needs to be given the carbon space. Then further moving on, it has also been provided that India has also the credibility to continue in this particular direction and can further nudge the other countries also to move for decarbonization. Then basically, when we talk about the next theme, just a minute. So we have seen de-escalation was the theme, digitalization was a theme, equitable and inclusive development was a theme. So basically, when we talk about the inclusive development, we have the idea of the Vasudeva Kutumbakam. Vasudeva Kutumbakam means that the world is one family. World is one family, and this is exactly the tagline that we have taken in we have taken for the G20 2023 presidency. So the theme for 2023 presidency for the G20 is One Earth, One Family, One Future, and it is inspired from the Vasudeva Kutumbakam. Now we have not only given this particular tagline, but we have lived as per the ideology of Vasudeva Kutumbakam as well. For example, when the COVID-19 crisis was going, when the COVID-19 pandemic was going on, we have provided the medical assistance to more than 150 countries, particularly the example of vaccine matri or vaccine diplomacy that India took, and under the vaccine program, more than 75 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine were provided to 94 countries as well as the two United Nations entities. Moreover, when Russia-Ukraine war got started, India evacuated around 22,500 students, and at the same time 150 foreign nationals from the 20 countries were also evacuated. So India did not discriminated in our own people and other people. India had reached to the assistance for the other people, other countries as well. Now in the line of the Vasudev Kutumbakam, we have the a famous Tamil poet, that is Kanyan Pongun Ranar. Okay, so Kanyan Pongun Ranar in the 6th century BC had written that all the places on earth are our towns and all the people are our relatives. We are evolved from common ancestor. So we have a common ancestor and we all have evolved from them. We all are, all the places are our towns, all the peoples are relatives. So this is something where the fraternity, cosmopolitanism, global brotherhood is being reinforced. Then at the same time, these philosophies have not just been handed to from generation to generation, but we have lived with these particular philosophies. They have become the part of our national consciousness. Now, as India is assuming the G20 presidency, India needs to live by this particular kind of an ideology, and we need to provide a hand to all the brothers and sisters who are suffering right now, be it the war torn countries such as the Ukraine, be it the other countries, be it the Myanmar, where the military junta has taken over. So we need to focus on this thing, and the Amrit Kal, that is the next 25 years, in this particular thing, the global harmony needs to be focused. Now, moving to the next article, why liquor ban is bad and good. Now, this article is taken from the Indian Express, and this particular article we are going to see with respect to the GS paper number 2, government policies and government policies implication on vulnerable sections of society. Okay. Now, basically, guys, what has happened? We see this particular thing that last few days back there was a huge tragedy. That happened in Bihar. Huge means spurious, adulterated, inferior quality of liquor that was consumed by the people, and after consuming this spurious liquor, many people died, many people became severely ill. So this huge tragedy by consuming the spurious liquor have happened. Now, basically, we see this particular thing that into the aftermath of it, there have been different kind of responses that have been shown by the different actors. For example, critics have provided this particular thing that this tragedy is because of the state's prohibition policy. Secondly, guys, many people and even the chief minister of the Bihar has provided this particular thing that if people are consuming the liquor, they deserve to die. Okay, and many such politicians have also supported this particular kind of viewpoint that if people are consuming it, that government is not responsible. But is it really, can it be justified? When we talk about, guys, the ethical dimension, if we take the ethical dimensions in this particular direction, understand that state state has been appointed through a social contract, and as a part of, now the Hobbes have provided this social contract theory. So state has been appointed by a social contract, and in line with this particular social contract, the state is bound to serve the people. Okay, so therefore now as a tragedy has happened, the government cannot simply shrug off the shoulder. Okay, now when we talk about the Constituent Assembly debates with respect to the prohibition provisions, so understand this particular thing, guys, that when we talk about the consumption of alcohol or the liquor in India, it is equated with morality. And ethics. Is it clear or not? Fine. Now, in the Constituent Assembly in 1948, Constituent Assembly member B.H. Hardekar very clearly provided that prohibition, complete ban on liquor or alcohol is not possible in India. Why? Because of three reasons that were given. Reason number one, it is very hard to enforce the complete prohibition. Okay, because there will be some underground network that anyhow be developing, and by that underground network people will consuming the alcohol, so the enforceability of this ban is not possible. Second thing, it was provided that even if there will be the limited enforcement of this particular ban, it would overwhelm the jails. How it will overwhelm the jail? Understand this particular thing, that suppose the ban is being enforced, the people who still consume the alcohol, they will be charged and then they will be put into the jail, and given the number of people who consume alcohols, it will overwhelm the prisons. The next thing that comes here is that it would lead to revenue loss, because most of the states are dependent on the revenues coming from alcohol sale. Now understand, we have the provisions of the constitution in this particular direction. We have article 47 in the Indian constitution in DPSP, directive principles of state policy, and article 47 clearly provides that it is the state's endeavor, state has to focus on bringing the complete prohibition on consumption of liquor except for medicinal purposes, except for medicinal purposes. Okay, so intoxicating drinks, drugs, alcohol, its consumption is needed to be reduced. It is a mandate on the state as per article 47. However, when we talk about the legislative position on the liquor, as per the alcohol comes under the 7th schedule, and therefore alcohol comes in the state subject in the 7th schedule, so therefore it is the state's responsibility to legislate on alcohol. Fine. Now there are regional variations with respect to that how alcohol have been treated. For example, it differs from state to state. There are certain states where complete prohibition is there, and in certain states there is private sale that can be allowed. Certain states private sale is not allowed, only government sale is allowed. There are right now the 5 states with the complete prohibition. Now when we talk about constitution has provided that the alcohol needs to be prohibited. It's a common goal. Now what are the benefit of prohibition or the ban? So number one, we have found this particular thing, that there are multiple studies which have clearly linked alcohol with the domestic abuse or domestic violence, particularly in the state of Bihar. And it has been found by a report by Sexual Violence Research Initiative that when the prohibition was introduced in Bihar in 2016, crimes against women have declined both in terms of the rate and incidence in Bihar. So basically we find that it is directly leading to the women's welfare. So therefore the prohibition is desirable, it should be carried. Moreover, it has also been provided that the other crimes also reduced when the alcohol consumption reduces, because people many number of times commit crime in the state of intoxication. Now we see this particular thing, that marginally improved in other kinds of crimes have happened, and in US also the prohibition is associated with the lower murder rates, lower crimes. Okay, so therefore alcohol ban is not completely undesirable kind of a thing, and it can be enforced. Then moving on, however, the alcohol ban also has some of its problems. So what are the ill effects of prohibition? Number one, we find this particular thing, that even if the ban is imposed, this entire industry becomes underground. It becomes underground and it thrives. There are the liquor mafias, etc., that support this underground industry. And when it is underground, what happen? People many number of times consume the spurious and adulterated liquor. Okay. Now suppose if liquor is not banned, people are buying it from the established the government approved shops, then it might not be possible that the spurious liquor will come under will come through the standardized packaging. But when this entire industry is underground, it leads to spurious liquors profusion. Moreover, this particular thing also leads to organized crime group gangs. Okay. Moreover, what happens, it also reduces the tax money that would have went to the government. Fine. Then the next thing, it disproportionately affects the poor section of society, the people who are habituated to alcohol, the people who are addicted to the alcohol. They impact because now they spend even more proportion of the income that they are having in buying the alcohol, in buying the liquor. Rich people or people from the middle class, they can still procure the expensive alcohol which is coming through some smuggling from the other states, but the poor people will more be impacted. Guys, understand this particular thing. Alcohol ban has been imposed many number of times. Why? because because many of the poor people, they spend more than 50% of income on alcohol. Now what is happening? When alcohol is banned, the smuggled alcohol is more expensive, and now they are spending around 80% of the income on alcohol. In Bihar, it has been found that the demand for the substitutes of alcohol have skyrocketed. Fine. And drug addiction in the some youth have become a very big problem, and addiction on other kind of substances have increased. Okay. The next thing is there, we also find that it leads to revenue loss, and particularly we can take the example of the Maharashtra government here. So basically, when COVID lockdown was imposed, during the time of the COVID lockdown, it was found that the liquor shops were closed. Liquor shops were closed, and as liquor shops were closed at that point of a time, a lot of revenue decline happened. So it shows that how much the state of Maharashtra is dependent on the liquor, and this is the situation in almost all the situations. Okay. So therefore, what can be the solutions? So possible solutions in this particular line could be this. Number one, we can levy high taxes on alcohol so that the alcohol becomes very expensive, and it becomes unaffordable for certain people. Moreover, by taxing the alcohol, we find this particular thing that government's revenue will be increased. Okay. And as the alcohol is legal but there are the high taxes, government police can focus on certain targeted interventions also. Because guys, see this thing, when the alcohol is banned, government need to focus even on bursting the gangs, on bursting the groups which are selling the spurious liquor. But if the alcohol is available, the government need not to divert too much of the energy, because people can buy it from the shops. Okay. So then government can give even more focus. Okay. The next thing that comes here in this particular direction is that, guys, policy makers should also focus on encouraging the people for responsible behavior and compliance. We need to educate the people. Fine. Moreover, as the revenues will be increased, these particular revenues can be used by the government for improving the social education of the people, for bringing the de-addiction among the people. The money can be used for community-based approaches, programs, or for sensitization of people. Then another thing is that drinking age should be made uniform across the country, and rules should be strictly implemented that no underage person will be given the alcohol. This particular thing will reduce the people who are becoming accustomed for alcohol consumption. The next thing is that the policy makers should be promoting the moderation and temperance as the values, that is consuming in balance. So consumption in balance needs to be propagated. So these virtues needs to be talked about. Okay. Now moving to the next article. Okay guys, if is there any problem? Okay, let's take some questions. Sir, what is good terrorism and bad terrorism concept? This topic is today in news. Please clear my doubt. Okay, web of good terrorism or bad terrorism. Basically, what happens? The countries such as the Pakistan, they make differentiation between good and bad terrorism. Basically, understand this particular thing, that a group of people which is being called as a terrorist by a country, B country can justify these people, and they can say that these are the freedom fighters fighting for a particular cause. Okay, so the people who are fighting for a particular cause and whose cause is justified, those people are called as good terrorist by some of the countries such as Pakistan. But the other people, other group of terrorists are called as the bad terrorist. Now, India has a problem with this. According to India, there is no variations in terrorism. All terrorism is bad. So there can be no good and bad terrorism. Okay, so I hope wherever it's clear. Then Shubdeep. Sir, I am from West Bengal. My whole study is in Bengali medium, but I want to give UPSC. Should I start answer writing in English or in Bengali? What should be my approach? Shubdeep, see, if you are comfortable in English and if you want to give attempt in English, then you should start in English. Okay. And see, there might be some hesitation in English right now, but that hesitation will come down as you will speak and interact in English more and more. Okay. Now, Indian Express article, law for digital assets. Okay. So we are going to discuss that what these digital assets are and how they are becoming a kind of a nuisance now. This particular article will be important in GS paper number 3. Okay. GS paper number 3, science and technology, and the how the technologies are becoming the double-edged weapons. Let's take the article. So basically, guys, recently what had happened, while India right now is the non-permanent member in the United Nations Security Council, and India being the non-permanent member in UNSC has recently hosted the No Money for Terror conference. Now, this No Money for Terror conference was hosted by the Union Ministry of Home Affairs, and it concluded with the commitment from 93 countries who have attended that they will reduce the financing of the terror. Now, when we talk about the finance, when we talk about the terrorist group, from where they are getting the money, that is very important kind of a question. So these terrorist group, they are getting money through the use of emerging technology such as the virtual digital assets. Now, what is the virtual digital assets? Okay, virtual digital assets. So basically, just a minute. So virtual digital assets can be explained as the newly emerging cryptocurrencies that have become very prominent. So they are using these virtual digital assets, and by that they are transferring the money. The G20 is a finance track discussion. So basically in the G20 there is the finance track discussion that happens, and then there are the Sherpa track. In the finance track discussion, the finance ministers, the central banks, governors, etc. will be participating, and in Sherpa track, civil servants will be participating. So finance track discussion in G20, they are talking that we need to regulate these virtual digital assets so that they are not being used in terror financing. Okay. Now, when we talk about the virtual digital assets in this particular direction, guys, the Finance Act of 2020 has defined the virtual assets section. The clause 47A of Finance Act 2022 defines it. As per this particular clause, it has been provided a virtual digital asset mean any information or code or a number or a token, fine, which is not of Indian currency, okay, which is not of any foreign currency, but it is the number, the code or token which is generated through cryptographic means. Through cryptographic means, that is the virtual digital assets. Okay, these virtual digital assets will include the cryptocurrencies that we have. Now, basically it has been provided that on fundamental level, these cryptocurrencies or these virtual digital assets are a very big problem because there is a lack of reporting. Basically, guys, understand this thing, there is no central bank, there is no central bank, there is no central authority, there is no central authority who is issuing this particular money. Moreover, usually if we want to transfer the money, how you can transfer the money from A to B country? Let's see this particular concept. If you want to transfer money from A to B, either this particular money can be transferred in physical form, or it can be transferred through the bank, okay, or it can be transferred through hawala. It can be transferred through hawala. For example, there will be an hawala agent, you will give money to that particular person will take some commission and will deliver that particular money through its agents. Okay, now if you are transporting money physically, okay, and if this particular money is not generated by the by the proper legal means, moreover there are the limitations also, the amount of physical money that you can carry. So it is easy to nab such kind of money if the terrorists are, if these particular monies are being transferred for terrorists objective. If you are sending the money in electric manner, digital manner, then the banks will come in between, and banks will be able to know that particular trail. And if the money is being transferred through the hawala, then there are the money laundering agencies and many such kind of a hawala laws in almost all the countries that we have. But now, when there is a cryptocurrency can be transferred from one crypto wallet to other crypto wallet, and the central banks agencies will, they don't have any control on that. They don't even are getting reporting for such kind of a transactions. There is no transparency. International consensus is not there. How to regulate it? There is no kind of a consensus on these particular kind of a things. So all these issues are there. Recently, Reserve Bank of India's deputy director have highlighted this particular thing, that there is a lot of difficulty in regulating the virtual digital assets because of the lack of reliable data. We don't know how they are these things are these currencies are being transferred, who is sending them, who is a recipient. Moreover, these crypto wallets in which these cryptocurrencies are to be stored, they are being held by anonymous people. Okay, the KYC, know your customer norms, are not to be done. One of the largest crypto exchange, FTX, has very clearly provided that the bad actors are engaging in unchecked transactions. Now, when we talk about the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, it doesn't even apply to virtual digital assets. Okay, it doesn't apply to the virtual digital assets. Okay, now what can be the way forward in this particular direction, how to reduce these virtual digital assets? Number one, the countries should amend the mandate of the anti money laundering authorities. Okay, for example, in India we have the enforcement directorate, and enforcement directorate is particularly responsible for money laundering activities. So the anti money laundering authorities in all the countries, their mandate is to be changed, and they should be given the visibility over the virtual digital asset transactions. They should be given power to impose controls on them. They should be given power to prosecute the people who are using these virtual digital assets for some wrong kind of purposes. The next thing is there that India should aim to create a trusted corridors of for tech innovations with like-minded countries. Basically these digital currencies, cryptocurrencies are backed. They are being basically they are backed by the technology. So we need to develop the counter technologies by which we can track them. Okay. The next is the Financial Action Task Force guidelines on virtual asset transactions can be used as a template. So when we talk about the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, it has already designed a guideline, and these guidelines have even been adopted by the European Union, Japan, Singapore. So on this particular line, India can also design a kind of a template and can bring the like-minded countries together to control these virtual digital assets. The next thing that comes in this particular direction is that the Financial Action Task Force guidelines. Let's discuss about them, because we have discussed that Financial Action Task Force guidelines can be used. So what are these guidelines? So Financial Action Task Force prescribes minimum AML CFT standards. Okay. Now, basically, guys, when we talk about the yes, FATF, Financial Action Task Force, it prescribes the minimum AML. AML stands for anti-money laundering. Okay, and CFT standards. Now, basically, it has been provided that there might be the likelihood, if there is misuse of the virtual digital assets, then all the countries had need to apply these particular standards. Now, the key feature of this particular standard is that there needs to be the license and registration requirement, as well as there needs to be the extensive reporting and record keeping obligations on VDA service providers. Now, here comes the role of the exchanges, crypto exchanges, for example, who are providing the virtual digital asset services. Their data needs to, basically their registration is compulsory. They should take a license. They should keep the record of all the transactions that are happening, and only by this particular thing. So basically they can act as the new age banks in this particular direction. Next thing that is being provided, that Financial Action Task Force guidelines, they also require that the virtual digital asset service providers, they should also perform due diligence obligations. The people who are using their facilities, people who are using their services, their identity needs to be cross verified, checked. Okay, so they need to corroborate the customer's identity. They need to identify that with a national database. They also should be tracing a customer's IP address to see that they are not having link with any terrorist group. Fine, they are not involving in any illicit activity, or they are not transferring these virtual digital assets to such a kind of a country which is a high risk country. For example, the money should not be transferred to Syria, Afghanistan, or all such kind of countries. So this is something that needs to be focused upon. Now we need to extend the regulatory oversight on the virtual digital asset. So basically the FATF guidelines, fine, which already we have discussed these particular things. Now India is already having the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, 2002. Now the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, it is applicable to wide range of activities which might be used for money laundering. Now it has been provided that the government has the power to notify any designated business or profession as as a reporting entity under the PMLA. Any type of business have to report the transactions to the enforcement directorate. This thing can be brought. Now it has been provided that government, by using the power that has been given under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, provide that the VDA, virtual digital asset service providers, they are the designated businesses, and all the transactions that are happening is at these crypto exchanges, all the services that are being provided by these VDA service providers, they need to give the record to the government of India, and government through the artificial intelligence, government through other state of the art tech tools that they are having, they can ensure that these currencies are not being used for such kind of a wrong purposes. So this is something that we need to focus upon. Now understand this particular thing, guys, that recently digital data protection bill has been introduced. Moreover, Digital India Act is in the pipeline. Now Digital India Act is going to either supersede or is going to complement the IT Act of 2000. Now IT Act of 2000 is already 2 decades old, and many of the new challenges it is not able to meet. So the IT Act will be amended, okay? And after coming of the new Digital India Act and the Digital Data Protection Bill, the Indian people, the businesses, they will have a coherent system of rights and responsibilities. And it basically, in these particular acts, we need to implement certain kind of a provisions by which even if the virtual digital assets are being used for the wrong purposes, they can be nabbed. Now India has started the G20 presidency on 1st of December, and in this particular line, India needs to play a very important and critical role. India needs to bring the like-minded countries together, and we need to tackle this particular issue very carefully. This is, guys, all about that has been provided in this particular article, and with this we come to an end to the today's newspaper analysis discussion. So guys, I hope that you have understood all these particular articles. Okay, let's take if you have some of the doubt. Okay, sir, is Bitcoin come under virtual digital asset? Yes, Bitcoins will come under the virtual digital assets because the Bitcoin is one of a cryptocurrency. All the cryptocurrencies will come under that. Sir, we are fully dependent on your daily discussion. Please don't stop this session. Yes, yes, Shubdeep will not be stopping this session. You please support the session, and yes, it will be continued. So that is all, guys, for the today's newspaper. So today's editorial analysis discussion. So that is all. That is all. Now we'll be meeting tomorrow. Till then, guys, please take care of yourselves, and if you have liked the video, please do hit the like button. Please do subscribe to the channel. Okay, and the PDF you can download from the link that has been given in the description box in this particular video. That is all about it. Thank you so much.